Good morning, Boker Tov. Welcome back to 10 minutes of meaning. Please help yourself to coffee, slushies, pastries, and the lobby. 10 minutes of meaning series is generally sponsored by Shmuel and Esther Shaiwitz, Leila Nishma, says Father Yaakov Yudim and Gedalia, and the schus of Refuah Shlema of her mother Batsheva Bas Bluma Rivka. We remain very indebted to the Shaiwitzes. We are making our way through Iggeres HaRamban, the Ramban's letter that he wrote originally to his son, but the Ramban's letter, as we keep mentioning, that really he wrote to each and every one of us, how to condition ourselves and accustom ourselves to always speak benachas, speak calmly and softly, overcome anger, eliminate anger. Don't eliminate anger by anger management. Don't manage your anger. Eliminate anger. If you always speak softly and gently, you'll never express and you'll never feel ultimately anger. And in lieu, instead, what will come in its place? Anavah. If anger is the most categorically bad and dangerous and damaging quality, then anavah, humility, is the most categorically good and positive quality. We last left off, the Ramban has been telling us, and after all, what's a person going to be arrogant about? Your wealth could disappear overnight. Your wisdom, your brain, your memory, your analytic ability, sadly we know, those could disappear overnight. Your honor, somebody could accuse you, your honor, you could be dishonored, it could disappear overnight. Hashem elevates those who are low, and Hashem can bring down those who feel high in themselves. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything is nimtza, kol shava lefnei hamakom. Everything and everyone is equal before Hashem. Lachin hashpil atzmecha v'nasacha hamakom. And therefore, diminish your sense of self, and instead elevate Hashem. That's exactly what you see in our parsha. Yosef was languishing in prison. Yosef was falsely accused. Yosef, who's been abandoned by his family. Yosef now has an audience with the emperor of the world, with Paro. And Paro has heard about him that he knows how to interpret dreams. And this is his chance. This is his shot. This is his way out. And Paro says, I heard you're an excellent dream interpreter. Can I tell you my dream? Tell me what you think. Yosef doesn't do what we'd expect or we would have coached him to do, which is to say, yeah, I'm not bad. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I have a pretty good track record. No, tell me your dream. You know what Yosef says? He says, Biladai. It's not me. Elokim yanesh shlom Paro. It's not me. Oh, that ability to interpret dreams, that's on loan from Hashem. He's the one who interprets. I'm lucky that he uses me as the mouthpiece. He uses me as his agent. He uses me to communicate the interpretations of the dreams, but it's not me. Biladai. And that's the attitude that Ramban is telling us that everybody should have. Whatever your profession, whatever your hobby that you excel at, someone comes up to you and says, I heard you're the greatest surgeon, you're the greatest doctor, you're the greatest accountant, you're the greatest lawyer. I heard you're the greatest mahjong player, you'd be the greatest fourth for our golf outing, you'd be the greatest doubles partner in tennis. You say, Biladai. Thank God I've been lent some talents from above, but Biladai, it's not me. It's not me, Elokim. Hashem has given me the ability to heal or to argue cases or to get you a good, what do you call it? To taxes, what do you get? A good rebate. Thank you. So, a good rebate. So, Biladai, the general attitude has to be, Biladai, it's not me. It's not me, it's the Ribono Shalom. And now the Ramban continues. So now let me explain to you how to practice. How can you carry yourself and practice the midah of anavah to walk with it always? Interesting, that word tisnaheg. What form of the verb is that word tisnaheg? It's hitpael, it's reflexive. Tisnaheg. Condition yourself to always walk with humility and modesty. Tamid, always, all times and all places. It's a very interesting thing, that notion, tisnaheg. I would have expected the Ramban to say, be humble, be humble, be humble. Change your thinking, change your attitude, and be humble. You're not all that. You're not God's gift to anything. All of us eventually are going to be pushing up roses, daisies, whatever the expression is. You're nothing special. You're not that great. So be humble. But the Ramban doesn't say that. He says the first step to humility is tisnaheg, act like you're humble. And this is a very Torah attitude. Sefer HaChinuch famously writes throughout his work in being Mona the mitzvos and counting the mitzvos, he says, Achra peulos nimshach halavavos. After our actions, our heart will follow. We make the mistake in our time, in our generation, to think, wait for inspiration, and once you're inspired, the actions will follow. But the opposite is in fact the truth. Act like you're already there, and the inspiration will catch up. The inspiration will follow the way that you're acting. Science and research endorses this, not that we need them to, but they did studies. on two populations. One, they gave a white coat and they told them, you're painters. And the other, they gave a white coat and they said, you're doctors. And they measured the way people behaved, what they thought of themselves, how they conducted themselves. And the people, nothing wrong with being a painter. And no offense, there's nothing so great about being a doctor. But in people's minds, there's an attitude about what the profile of a doctor is versus a painter. And simply by putting on that white coat, depending which population you thought you were part of, influenced the way people behaved. How we dress influences how we behave. And that's why there's the expression, dress for the job that you want, not the one that you have. So the Ramban is coming along and telling his son, Tis naheg. Listen, maybe you're not there. Maybe you're not humble in your thoughts, in your mind, in your attitude, in your perspective. Maybe you're not there yet being humble. But you know what? At least on the outside, tis naheg. Condition yourself, transform yourself, behave, present yourself as if you're acting with humility. Because if we carry ourselves with humility, which the Ramban's about to explain, in our posture, we don't have to be the loudest in every room, we don't have to be the first in every conversation. If we carry ourselves with humility, we'll end up becoming humble. Don't wait to be humble to practice humility. Practice humility, and you'll end up feeling humble. It starts on the outside. But this notion of tisnaheg b'midas anavah, carry, practice, act with the midah of anavah. Understand it's a value and a virtue. Understand it's a goal and an ambition. Understand what a humble person looks like, how they conduct themselves, how they don't need to stand out, how they're happy to fit in, how they don't have to be the loudest in the room. They're happy to blend in. How they don't have to be the first to speak or speak the longest. They're happy to have their turn. I'll never forget, during Corona, I'd like to forget Corona, but during Corona, I was on several Zooms with doctors and rabbis and huge poskim in order to help develop some policies. And Mori V'Rabbi Rav Shechter was on those Zooms. And he would be quiet. Doctors would speak, rabbis would speak, other poskim spoke, until someone said, Rav Shechter, what does Rebbe feel? What does Rebbe think? He waited. He listened and he learned. And he said, I want to hear what everyone else has to say. And that's a classic Rav Shechter. The humility to not feel he needs to be the authority. He needs to be presented, or people need to walk away, that he was the most assertive. He would sit on the Zoom, and until someone said, Rav Shechter, how do you feel? What do you think we should do? What do you think we should do as a policy? He would wait. Tisnaheg b'midas anavah. What does a humble person look like? How do they act? And then tisnaheg, act like that. When should you act like that? The Ramban writes to his son. How often should you act like that? Lalach ba tamid. To act that way, tamid, always. And it occurs to me, you know why? Because if you're only humble some of the time, you're never humble. If you're only humble some of the time, you're never humble. Again, I'm not judging anybody. I'm observing and finding it humorous. You ever talk to someone who tells you they're a vegetarian or a vegan? Most of the time. Occasionally, I have a piece of meat. Occasionally, I have a piece of fish. I hate to break it to you, then you're not a vegan or a vegetarian. You can't be, I'm married. Occasionally, I'm not. If you have a value, certain values that are all-encompassing and part of your core identity, if you believe in it firmly, now that doesn't mean that people don't have moments, they cheat. I don't mean in marriage, chas v'sholom. Talking about on your diet. You say, I'm on a diet, I don't eat potato chips. I don't eat Trader Joe's corn chips. That doesn't mean that late at night, someone went to Trader Joe's, they should not have brought that kryptonite into the house. They did, and they left it on the counter while you were most vulnerable. I'm not talking about we don't have moments. We don't have moments. But a person who says, I am most of the time, isn't. So a person who says, I'm humble most of the time, is never humble. Because humility is something, tisnaheg, and that's why the Ramban emphasizes, lalach ezba tamid. It's something you have to do consistently. Tamid, always. It's hard. Sometimes you feel you have a lot more to say. Sometimes you feel you have a more compelling position to share. Sometimes you feel there's a need for leadership, but that's not arrogance. We'll talk about the difference between self-confidence and arrogance. The difference between leadership is not the antithesis of humility. You can have very humble leaders who are expressing leadership. You can have people acting with self-confidence. You want your surgeon to be self-confident. You don't want them to walk into the operating room and say, I'm not so good, I'm not so special. Nurse, you want to give it a shot? I could give it a shot. I don't really know. You want your doctor to walk in and say, I got this. Hashem, you gave me tools. Hashem, you gave me skills. You gave me an education. You gave me experience. And if you're willing, we've got this together. Let's do it. Let's do it with self-confidence. Self-confidence is not the opposite of humility, is not arrogance. But the Ramban is telling his son, tis naheg. It's not just a quality you should have in your head, it's a quality that we need to exhibit. And don't wait to be humble to exhibit humility. Exhibit humility, and you'll end up finding yourself being more humble. A lichtige Chanukah should be a day of Besoros Tovos, Yeshuos, V'Nechamos.